music makers document. Okay.
Let me finish this thought, if you will.
Yeah.
The way Frank uses instruments, like for instance, a contrabass instrument, or like say for instance, a contrabassoon.
Yeah.
And a piccolo. You have this swamp, Hades kind of like fiery, stenchful gunk of a bassoon down there, way down.
I mean, he made it like that, or that's a given?
This is a given.
Yeah,
the instrument's vocabulary is there.
Yeah.
With a piccolo up here, you know, I mean, up to the practically register.
Right.
And this is, I mean, in terms of just traditional instruments, I'm speaking, not what this is talking about in the mass grand
but
scheme
within
of things.
music,
but within the musical
doing that.
confines, he would do that. Or with my Taurus bass pedals, when he found out that I had a set of Taurus bass pedals, he never heard of those before. And I was trying to get a set of B3 pedals, voltage controlled at Manny's, and I walked in one day, this was still when I was in Connecticut, and they had a set of bass pedals. It was only an octave, but I said, holy shit, I don't even have to do any modification, I'll just buy these.
Jeez.
I had the first set in the world, actually. And they had just come in. And then when I joined the band, I already had my bass pedals. I'd been using them for a couple of years. He loved that low fucking C on that instrument.
Yeah.
He would just, and I would be so like wanting to, oh, this is bringing up another topic here too, that I would, he said, just hold that C, man, just hold it. That's like an instrument before basses could go down to C's, only synthesis could do that. And it's just like, I could have been a paraplegic doing it with my dick, just, you know, stomping that fucking note down. And in an arena, not outside in a stadium, that's just more people. But in an arena, in a sports box, the biggest place you could possibly be that's still confined. That feeling, man, it's like something else, UFO. You feel that. It's not something you know about or can have an expectation about. It's something that just happens. Who knows what occurs when these kind of frequency juxtapositions happen? We know in acoustics, Bob, that when two notes are simultaneously played together, we have a combination tone that occurs. When they're at mass extremities like that, the potential for any kind of physical manifestation of that can be exponentially increased because of the distances. And I think that Frank, in a traditional sense of orchestration, used that, but in a farther sense of an experiential, just challenging our version of nature, he was on the verge of something, man. He was totally on the verge of something.
Okay,
when he would tell the guys from Ensemble Moderne to have these priceless French horns, rub those bastards against the floor. They do it. And who knows why Frank was, he knew, you know, he valued instruments. I remember times when I would burn holes in the keyboard and he'd notice it 3 years later and said,
he'd find you.
But the fact is that he was doing that for a reason. Sure, the sonic value was there, but there was something else, and it wasn't a sadistic thing. He was searching for this thing, man.
He had gone into the electrified, see, you know, we have sound, and then you have recorded sound. That's a not new way of sound. So he worked in the interval between natural sound and recorded sound, plus the effects of doing them together in the architectural 20th century environment. Therefore, he was molding. Now, I want to show you this. You're supporting what my thesis is. Frank was a satellite conductor. That was the unconscious and unconscious, and you can see it as a motif all the way through. What is the first thing he builds at Studio Z? A rocket ship. And you started saying things that totally, I'd have to re-listen to the tape. You started sparking off references point, you know, accidentally. You go, Frank was like building a rocket ship, but it's like, you're not in the rocket ship, but you go out there. You said that only, you get out there on the moon. Well, that, if you read his description in the Little Ontario Daily Report, which we were reading, he's being interviewed about his movie called Just Captain Beefheart at that point, and he's got the satellite, the studio's a satellite, and Billy Sweeney wants to create a rocket to get to the moon. He wants to do the impossible. Think of later, 30 years later, why not? The impossible was part of his logo. So he's trying to do the impossible. He's Vulcanelli doing alchemy. But now, in 1978, in May 78, archival memory, in Downbeat, he did this incredible interview where he talked about moving around the air as sculpture. Think of Beefheart as his image of a great sculptor, a parallel reference point for him as Beefheart, the genius sculpture kid. He wants to make air sculpture. Now, you never read that interview, I guess. You're on the road too busy, but he says it to you 3-4 years later. But when some people read that, I remember meeting guys from the 60s, and they phased out of Frank during the Turtle section or something. You know, people phased in and out.
Sure.
And he said, I didn't like Frank in the early 70s, middle 70s, but when they didn't hear his music. When I read the Downbeat interview, I knew that guy was a genius.
Right.
And they got back into him, which then gets into the compositions he made in interviews. Okay. Now, you have this sculpture moving. Then, on the Music Makers, he says, the lawyer says, Frank had ridiculous dreams. Like he said, we got to get our own satellite. And Larry says, well, that costs $400–500 million. Frank says, no problem, we'll do it. And that was that. And then Van Carlson comes over the night, and he tells us, I brought up that story. He says, well, you know, I was in, when we went over in January 90 to Moscow, we went to the bureaucrat of Goss Film. And I don't know if you know this, and he said Frank's, the guy was bragging about their new satellite going up. So Frank, jumping on the president, said some things, and the guy says, we can offer you a satellite. He actually pulled it off, and it was going to be CNN. Right. You know what I mean? Not CNN. And he was going to do it. And so I don't know when he told Larry that cost $400 or $500 million, but let's assume it's before they got to Gospel. This lawyer guy, I think his name's Larry, he didn't know maybe what Van Carlson experienced. That this bureaucrat actually was. Frank knew he had faith, Catholic faith, whatever that faith is, that he could find it, even though it cost $500,000. And life led to him. The wall goes down. He ends up in Moscow. He's talking to the Goss Film bureaucrat.
Everything, all the pieces start fitting together.
Right. And the bureaucrat, he energized. He just thought it'll happen.
Right.
Think it'll happen. And then the Goss Film guy says, oh, we got a great satellite going up and blah, blah, we don't know what to put on it.
Guess what?
Yeah.
You're looking at the new pilot, baby.
Now look at that's like 92, and it's 90, but it's almost 30 years from 62.
Right.
And he's still working with satellite. Now you look at, he goes, some like it hot, some like it cold in Pajama people. He wasn't that aware of McLuhan's writings, but Marshall wrote about the satellite conductor using hot media and cold media, whole industrial phase, and then the software phase, the modern and the postmodern, and the satellite conductor, satellite government. The White House is the front, the red herring for the real satellite. So the secret instructions. Frank was imitating that, and I call that the satellite conductor. That's why he could use conspiracy information, paranoia information, to fit into the secret instructions level.
Absolutely, man, because he was just mocking it.
He was mockulating. Nobody knows, and I'll have to take credit for this. I'm the one who's saying he's satellite conductor. You're confirming from your own experience that that's what he was.
No doubt.
And I'm saying it for the first time. I got the word. He's the satellite conductor, and he's imitating. And that's why he was so proud when he went to NASA. He met a guy from NASA, and I think they showed him some landing, the Voyager stuff. He would always want to be.
Oh yeah, I remember, because he gave me the pin when they went to Saturn. When he went up to JPL, he actually gave me his pin of that particular expedition.
Yeah, that they gave him.
I saw it there, and I said, oh my God, that's beautiful. He says, just take it. Frank was like that sometimes. He'd give you shit.
There's the generosity.